Hello, my name is Dr. Maribel Coda, and I will be sharing my testimony today. I'm going to start as when I was a little girl. At the age of 2 years old, my parents, they brought me from Mexicali to the United States. And, of course, every parent that will bring their children to the United States, it's, of course, to have a better life and to, have a future and a hope. And so I remember as a little girl, like I would always get good grades in school. I loved school. I remember, collecting papers just to play school, like I was the teacher and I would be correcting papers and stuff. And as I grew older, I remember, living in a very violent neighborhood, a very violent atmosphere. My dad was an alcoholic, and I just remember, the times where he would pull up in the car and um, if the music was super loud, I already knew that my dad was drunk, and I just dreaded that day or that night. He would come in. First thing he would want to do was put the radio full blast, and then he would, start tipping over, our living room table. And then after that, I would just remember he would always try to cause fights with my mom. And so that was just, the way I grew up in a very violent atmosphere. And I just kind of thought that every home was like that, and until one day I remember going to my friend's house and I seen her dad drinking, and I'm waiting for him to turn over tables or to start fights, because my dad would fight with the neighbors and then we would have to jump in because, we wouldn't want, my dad to get beat up or anything. And I remember her dad was just sitting there watching TV, and it was just quiet, and I that's when I realized, wait a minute, this is not normal. The life that I'm living is not normal. So, like at the age of 12, I remember me and my brother used to hang out. We're just like 1 year apart. And so we used to hang out. We used to go to like the Frank Wright dances in the city of El Monte. That's where I grew up. And, little by little, we started drinking at the dances, and then, we would sneak beer in there, and then we were smoking cigarettes, and then, we started progressing into, smoking, dust and, super cools and all that stuff. So by the age of 15, I just remember um, the father of my older kids. I just remember him and my brother, my biological brother, going into like Carl's Jr., and they were in the restroom together. They were in there like for a while. And I was like, what are they doing? And so when he came out, I asked him, what were you guys doing? And he didn't want to tell me. And so he finally told me, okay, this is what we were doing. We were slamming. And I'm like, okay, what is slamming? And he goes, well, we were doing drugs. We were using heroin. And so, me always being curious or always, wanting, I wasn't really scared of anything growing up, because of the home that I lived in, very violent. And so I wanted to try it. And so that's when, he gave me heroin to try. And so that's how, I started using. Well, I ended up getting pregnant. And so through my pregnancy, I didn't use. And so after I had my son, I started to use again. And so from 15, 16 to 28, I lived a life of, homelessness. We slept in a car. I remember washing my hair at Carl's Jr. I remember, going to the stores and just like getting pairs of Levi's, packing them up in a pile, and he would wait for me outside in the car, and then I'd run to the car and then, wait until the lady went, behind the register. And then we would take off and just make money like that. I remember going into the stores and just going into the stores with an empty purse, going straight to the makeup, stealing compacts and selling them to some lady, that would sell her makeup at the swap meet. And so we just found different ways to make money. We would drive in the car, just checking to see who would leave their garage door open. So we would go and steal their lawnmowers, their bikes and stuff like that. Or we would even, drive around and look for, the landscapers. And back in the day, they would not chain their lawnmowers to their trucks and, blame it on us. They chain their blowers to their trucks now, but at that time they wouldn't. And so we would wait until the landscapers would go in the backyard or somewhere, and we would go to the truck and steal the blowers and their lawnmowers, and then we'd drive around, look for another, gardener and sell them, the equipment that we had and stuff. And so we found different ways. I remember calling connections up and taking the drugs and then running. I tried to quit a lot of times, and it was just, really hard for me, especially when, the father of my kids would come, knocking at my door when I would get cleaned, and he would come knocking at my door and, throw rocks at my window, and I'd look down and I'd be like, I can't go, I can't go. And he would open up his mouth and he would have balloons in his mouth. And so I'd be like, okay, I'll be right there. And so my parents, at the age of 15, my dad, he went into a rehabilitation program at a Greater El Monte Hospital. And so his boss paid for it, because even though my dad was an alcoholic, he was a functioning alcoholic, and he would work, and he was a great worker. So his boss paid for him to go into a Greater El Monte Hospital, and he got cleaned up and he stopped drinking. And so, by that time, I was really mad at my dad, because at 15, I thought my world had ended. I had gotten pregnant, and I was going to have a baby. And, so when he, stopped drinking, I was kind of mad, and I didn't really care anymore. I was like, I don't care, you're not drinking no more. Okay, well, big whoopee-doo, like my life is over now. I was 15 years old, but again, you have to remember, I thought I was so grown up because, I practically raised myself. I got myself up to go to school. I fed myself, and so I thought I was so grown up. So when I got pregnant at the age of 15, I literally thought like my life was over, and so I didn't really care if my dad stopped drinking at that time or not. And so, they started praying for me and stuff. And so when they started praying for me, I just remember, coming home at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would literally see my father praying for me on the couch. And, I would be like, wow, And so, I remember I had gotten busted. I never did prison time, but, I did county time. And so, I think I learned, I learned from, going to jail and stuff. And I really didn't have to go to jail, because I always had, I always would want to stay home, like I remember I met this connection, and this connection would literally I would just call him up, and he would literally just come to my house and pick me up and take me to go get methadone. And then he'd give me some stuff to, get high off of. And so when I met this connection, and I wasn't with the father of my kids anymore, it just got worse, because the connection, he was, selling heroin and coke. And he was, taking me to get methadone. So now I'm on methadone, and now I'm doing heroin and coke, So when I ended up getting arrested, I kicked really bad. I kicked really bad. I was like sick. And so when I got out at the age of 28, when I was busted, I met this girl. And so when I got out, I got into a homosexual relationship, and I was with this girl for 2 years. I moved in with her, and I was with her for 2 years. And I think I literally became my father, because when we would get drunk and stuff, now I was beating up on her, now, I was, the violent one, and now I wanted to start fights with her. And so we would literally like box in the middle of the street and stuff. And so I just got tired of it, and I believe too that my parents' prayers, they were being in effect. And so one day I just got tired of it and I just left everything. She said, if you leave, you're not taking nothing with you. And I left everything, like, my shoes, my clothes, anything of value, I left it there. I didn't care. I just wanted to get out. I just felt myself like I was in bondage and I just left everything, because when you really want to change, you don't care. Anything of value, it just doesn't become valuable anymore. Your life becomes valuable. And so I just, left. I left her with everything. I didn't care. And so I ended up getting saved. And when I got saved, I started going to Victory Outreach in La Puente. My cousin Nadia and Brenda had invited me to this youth program. It was called God's Anointed Now Generation. And I started going there. And my life started changing, drastically. And so I just wanted to be that mother to my kids that I was never I had 3 kids at that time now, and my mom was watching them. And so I got my kids back. And so I met this man at work, and I started going to Bible college, and I just wanted more and more of God, and God had finally came in and, like changed me, and God was always there willing to change me, but I had to take that step. And so I started going to Bible college, and, me and my husband started doing really good at the church. He started preaching, and we became youth pastors at the church in the city of Santa Fe Springs, and we helped pioneer Freedom Christian Training Center. That's what it was called at the time, with Pastor Jason Lozano. And so we were there for a while. We were in leadership, and every Saturdays, he would teach us on leadership, and we were just helping, him, Pastor Jason, pioneer the church. And so I remember my husband started ministering, and he became everything that I wanted him to become. And so I was like really happy at that time. Well, one day, we get a call. It was like on a Friday night, and my son, he was in his car and on the freeway, and it was raining that day, and his car went hydroplane, and he ended up passing away. And my grandson was in the car as well, and my grandson, he's brain dead right now, but so I lost my son. And then a couple of years after, my husband, um, he had to start. He had started having problems with his leg, and so I took him to the hospital, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and he ended up having cancer. So the doctor told us, we're going to operate on you, and so we were okay. Let's we're gonna get through this. So one day the doctor calls us, and he says, you know what, I can't operate on you. And we're like, well, why? And he says, I'm going to tell you the truth. He goes, I'm going to tell you what no other doctor will tell you. He said, you need to get your affairs in order. You have stage 4 cancer, and there's really nothing we can do for you. If we operate on you, as soon as we open you up, you're going to die. And so I believe that I had so much faith that God was going to come through, that me and him, like, we didn't even, talk about him leaving. We did get our affairs in order. We knew what we were going to do. And I believed that God was going to take care of me and my kids at the time. And so we just trusted in God. And my husband, he was doing chemo, but then the chemo doctor called us in, and he said, you know what, I can't give you chemo anymore. It's just not helping you. And so we went home, and then my husband went into hospice. They put him in hospice, but at my house, and I took care of him. It was such a devastating time for me, is I just seen my husband like deteriorate in front of my eyes. His organs stopped functioning, and um, it was just really a hard time for me. And so he ended up passing away. And just the things that I have gone through. I know that sometimes people they don't understand why things happen, or they don't understand, why God allows things to happen. And so, we just got to trust in God to know that, what, no matter what happens, that God is, up to something, and He has a plan for your life. And sometimes, He allows things to happen that will hurt us, you know, physically and emotionally. They will hurt us. And sometimes we won't even get an answer of why the Lord allows things to happen. But we just got to trust in God to know that God knows, our future. God knows what we are called to do. And I honestly believe that if I wouldn't have gone through this, or if things would have worked out a whole different way, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I was running from my life, but running from God, but God wanted to do is make me an author. I've written 2 devotional books, and I have a program on Facebook. It's called TRV, The Righteous View. I minister to a lot, and I give hope to a lot of people. And my vision for TRV is to equip the saints, is to give hope to the hopeless. And so I use that program. I use that the program to minister to others, to tell them, hey, you know what, I've gone through this, and if I've gone through this and the Lord has brought me out, then God can do the same for you. And so I've just gotten my doctorate last year, the ending of last year. And so I never, ever, thought that I would be where I'm at right now. I never thought that I would be an author. I never thought that, I would be on HSBN TV program, doing my own program. I never thought that, God will bring me to the place where I'm at right now. And yes, was it painful? Yes. Was it devastating? Yes. Did I go through things? Yes. But a lot of times our lives don't belong to us. A lot of times, people are waiting on us to change. People are waiting on us to get it together, because there are so many people that are out there and they're in need. God has opened up my eyes where I see the need of the people. I see the need of mothers, that people are just crying out to God because they are in need. My need may not be the same as your need. And my testimony may not be the same as your testimony. And my, desires may not be the same as your desires. But all I do know is that Romans 8:28 says this. It says that all things will work out together for the good to those that love God and to those who are called according to His purpose. Jeremiah 29:11 says that I have a plan for you, declares the Lord. Plans of good and not of evil. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Plans to give you great success. And when we stand on these scriptures, regardless of what we go through, see, the enemy always tries to separate us from God. The enemy always tries to lie to us and say that God doesn't love us because, He allows things to happen in our lives. I don't know why my husband passed away. Maybe my husband, just gave up fighting. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you why, but I do know that if none of that would have happened, I wouldn't be able to minister to a lot of people. I wouldn't be able to encourage and give people hope. And sometimes I believe that, like Jesus had to pay the price for all of us, that we will be saved. I believe that sometimes, some people have to, pay the price for others. Salvation is free, but our lives don't belong to us. And God will give us the strength no matter what we've gone through. You probably say, yeah, but you don't know what I've done. You don't know, the sins that I've caused. No, I don't, but God does. And I do know that God is a loving God and God will forgive you. I do know that God is able to change you regardless of how much you are in your addiction. You might be saying, yeah, but I'm too much in my addiction. It doesn't matter. My dad was an alcoholic, an impossible case. I was a heroin addict. I was an impossible case. And I know, I'm pretty sure there are so many impossible cases that the Lord has came in and he's changed lives. The word of God says that he is the God of the impossible. So no matter what your story is, or no matter what your testimony is, I can sit here and say that God can do it. God can change. God can transform. God can give you peace. God can open a door that no man can shut. And God can make crooked roads straight. Not only did he do it in my life, not only did he do it in my father's life, but he can also do it in your life. And so I appreciate you watching today. I appreciate you sharing this video, and I appreciate you. So I love you, and God bless.